Hi, this is Mark Hager, and you're listening to Smart Retirement Life, a show where we talk about ideas, products, people, and more to help keep you inspired as you continue to create the life that you want. Today we're talking with Dustin Jones. Dustin is a home health physical therapist with a background in athletic training, fitness, and orthopedics. He works to bridge the gap between fitness and rehab for older adults. Welcome, Dustin. Thanks so much for being with me today.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate you having me on this morning.
Oh, yeah, it's my pleasure. Now, listen, Justin, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do?
All right. So as you mentioned, I'm a home health physical therapist. So home health PT is basically you work with adults that have a considerable and taxing effort to get out of the home. Is kind of the definition of that. So what that looks like on a day-to-day basis is typically older adults that are just limited in their abilities in their home, whether they're trying to do different tasks around their house or just even care for themselves. So I just work with these people to help them do what they want to do. Ultimately, help them get as much independence back as possible in their life, and that is going to be very different for each person. Some, we may get back to the point where, they're able to get out of their house safely and independently and, drive to the local pub, or, for some people, it may just be the simple fact that, they can actually get out of bed without help. So it varies a lot, but it's a very fulfilling job for sure, just to be able to spend, 2 to 3 hours a week in someone's home, and which is very unique, especially in the healthcare realm.
Just to clarify, what types of work are you doing with people in terms of to help them? I know that you were talking about people that might have a wide range of conditions, right, that cause them to have to be homebound. Now, obviously, not everyone needs physical therapy. So kind of what are those conditions and what's that dividing line?
Yeah, a lot of it, in terms of that dividing line, we typically look at their functional ability more so than like a medical diagnosis. I mean, we definitely focus on that, but someone's physical abilities can just vary so much, even with the same medical diagnosis, especially a lot of these chronic diseases. Some people have the potential to, benefit from like some strength training, something like, most people would do, lift some heavy stuff and they'll get stronger and get better. And, if that's scaled appropriately to that person in front of you, it'll work. Some people, that capacity to improve in that manner is a little limited. So, that may be a treatment session may be more focused on how can we adapt the environment? How can we use assistive devices? How can we kind of use different compensations to help you reach your goal? So it's kind of either or. There's some people that are going to improve physically, and some people that don't have a high potential to improve physically. But either way, we can work around their ability or deficits to help them hopefully achieve, what they want to be able to do.
Okay, so, and I'm actually trying to drive down to something here. Since we're not talking about everybody, and we're talking about people that have specific needs physically, right, because of some condition or because of something that, maybe an accident or illness or whatever, it's different for everybody, right? And it may not be severe. It may not be, I can't move, right? I'm really trying to drill down into, physical therapy isn't just for people who are very, very ill. Correct.
Yes. That is definitely the case. And even in my setting, there's a lot of people that I definitely wouldn't consider to be ill. They have a lot of life experience. Some people pushing 80s, 90s, in their hundreds, which if you take a look at things, just take a step back. I mean, they are in amazing shape. I mean, I would consider these like elite athletes in terms of people, if you compare them to other people in their age. So not necessarily something wrong with them. They're just older adults, and, our body just wears down with time, and their abilities are amazing, but they can improve from physical therapy. So yes, I agree with you. In the home health setting, though, it is most commonly someone that does have an illness or someone that is sick or has an issue, but definitely in other settings like the outpatient physical therapy setting, PT can definitely help anyone that wants to achieve, a certain physical goal. A lot of people, almost everyone has the capacity to definitely improve upon their situation, regardless of, that medical diagnosis. Definitely in the outpatient setting, I would say for sure.
Awesome. Okay, so what inspired you to focus on the care of older adults?
Well, nothing really inspired me. It was more just a situation that kind of put me in this job. So I was, like you said, I was in athletic training, had an orthopedic background. So I was definitely geared towards athletes. I loved working with young individuals that had these athletic capabilities, and that's what I was going for. And I moved to Columbus, Ohio, where I'm at now, and I was working in a fitness facility. It was a kettlebell gym called Move Strong Kettlebells, and I was working in there, just trying to build up kind of like a private physical therapy practice within this gym. While I was doing that, though, I was getting married to a physician resident, and if anyone knows a physician, you know that they have a lot of debt coming out of medical school. So I was pursuing kind of this trying to start a business that was not generating a lot of income. It had the potential to, but it was not at the time. And then I was, marrying this lovely woman that carried a lot of debt with her, and that reality kind of sunk in. So I was like, well, I got to get a job. I got to be able to, pay these bills, pay this loan repayment. And that started to sink in. So honestly, I mean, I'm not proud of this by any means, but I thought to myself, what physical therapy job could I get that would be what I thought of as easy and flexible and would pay me well, so I could pursue this side private physical therapy deal in the gym. And home health fits the bill. And anyone that works in home health, that you make your own schedule, and then, it also pays well. So all those things, I thought, okay, I'll just do this, temporarily. You can always find a home health job, and I'll just do that to help support myself as I'm trying to start this other business. And just as time went on, I started to enjoy it. And it was interesting because I was hesitant to let myself enjoy it, because home health is kind of viewed as the redheaded stepchild of rehab. It's where clinicians go to die. As a lot of people will say that it's not very desirable. You hear horror stories of filthy homes and all these terrible settings or homes that you go in, and that just wasn't the case as I was working. And the people, as I got to spend more time with them, because I hadn't really spent a lot of time with older adults up until then, I just really started to appreciate them as people and their stories, their past, and just what they still have to share. And I started to enjoy it. So just as over about a 6 to 7 month period, I just kind of took more and more responsibility in that home health job, and say, you know what, I'm gonna stick with this. Forget this little gym, private physical therapy business that I was wanting to start, and just dove right into it. And I guess the rest is history, as they would say.
So you were trying to wade through a difficult situation and made what you thought was a good choice, and then end up finding your passion.
Yeah. Honestly, it did not start as my passion, but the job has definitely shaped my passion to help older adults.
That's awesome. All right, so let's switch gears here, and let's talk a little bit about healthcare and the role that it plays in longevity and quality of life.
So in terms of like what we can do in terms of like a healthy lifestyle, or in terms of utilizing the healthcare system, because they may be different answers.
Well, actually, in terms of what you do, right? Let's talk about what you do.
Yeah, so I think I'll just kind of give people just kind of a background on the current state of geriatric rehab, because this goes hand in hand. If you look at most physical therapy, this is a blanket statement, so I know there's going to be a lot of people that debunk this for sure. But as a whole, if you look at how we care for older adults in the rehab setting, what you're typically going to see is our patients being under challenged, that they are not they're not being challenged enough to actually promote adaptation. And what, I'm hoping to do in my work and several other people that I've connected with, online and in my job, is that people benefit from getting uncomfortable in many different ways. So I think in terms of, longevity and health, the continual pursuit of discomfort, and not to say, no pain, no gain, try to, inflict pain on yourself, but just the discomfort of lifting heavy things, or, challenging yourself physically, not necessarily causing pain, but that edge of your ability where there's a little bit of discomfort, your body really likes it, and it'll adapt to that situation, become stronger, and it can better, handle the activities of daily living. So that's one thing that I hit on pretty hard with my patients, because especially if you look at a lot of older adults, the areas around them, their lives, a lot of risk is taken out, comfort is definitely maximized, and that can be a good thing, but it can also harm people. So in terms of longevity, challenging yourself physically regularly, whichever way that may be. I particularly love, kettlebells or barbells or, just heavy things, is very beneficial. And it needs to continue on throughout all of our lives, not just, when we're, 15 years old up to 55. This is like a lifelong endeavor to consistently challenge our physical capacity.
Excellent. All right, so tell me about someone, leave out names, obviously, that you've helped in a big way, something that really made an impression on you.
The first one that comes to mind is my good friend, Peony. I'm not going to say her last name. She's actually the voice on the introduction to my podcast. So Peony is 92 years old. I was treating her husband. Her husband was 90, and he was an amazing man. He was in World War II. His war stories were just amazing. He actually talked about them, which is kind of unique for that generation for sure. But he had severe dementia, and I started working with him kind of on the front end of it and got to see it kind of progress. But they were living in the same house that they had been in for over 40 years. And Peony was having a very, very difficult time caring for her husband, because he needed a lot of help. He's confused a lot. He didn't know how to do just very simple things, and just needed constant supervision. And Peony wanted to stay in the house. She did not want to go to a nursing home or an assisted living facility. But in order for her to do that, Walt, her husband, needed to be at the top of his game in terms of what he could physically be able to do. So I worked with him, and, we did all kinds of stuff in terms of, we did a lot of body weight training. I mean, I remember doing push-ups with him at some point. And this guy, he definitely made some references back to his boot camp days back when he was in the service, which was pretty cool. But we just did a lot of different stuff that was, I guess, very different from what they had experienced before in physical therapy. Because a lot of times, if you go into a PT gym, and if there's an older adult, a lot of times it's just going to be people sitting, maybe doing some exercise while they're sitting with, that stretchy band or TheraBand, as we call it, or maybe riding a bike, different things that can be helpful, but usually it's underdosed. It's not to a point where it's challenging enough to promote adaptation. And I kind of went in there and just, we just got after it. We were doing push-ups, we did squats, we were getting on the ground, we were crawling, we were doing all these things that were very challenging, and it allowed him to stay in the house longer than what he could have before. And Peony was just very, very grateful. And she expressed that, just saying thank you. But she ended up taking us to White Castle, my wife and I, and we went on a double date with them for Valentine's Day. And that was kind of their tradition. Every Valentine's Day they would go to White Castle. And I don't know if you're familiar with this. They have White Castle down there, right? Or is that a Crystal's land?
That's Crystal.
So White Castle, they will do table service on Valentine's Day. They put the white linen cloths out. I mean, they go to town with it. And we went with them, and it was awesome. We went to White Castle, got table service. I was 29, my wife's 28, and we're hanging out with 90-year-olds on Valentine's Day. That may mean I'm a bad husband, not taking her out to a romantic dinner, but we just had such a great time, and just to see her gratitude and to know we were able to do that for them was amazing. But I mean, it was just awesome to be able to spend that time with them, and it ended up being kind of their last Valentine's Day together, and that just always sticks out with me when I think about the power of what PT can do for older adults. I think of Peony and White Castle.
That is a great story.
It was awesome.
So being in physical therapy, obviously you're really into exercise, and why don't you tell me about some of the exercises maybe that you work with people, you use when you work with people, or some of the ones that are your most favorite, and why?
Okay. So, as a PT, anytime that we speak to the public, we have to give the blanket statement. It depends on the person. So I'll go ahead and get that out there. But a lot of what I do is not too different from what a lot of people see in kind of the sports realm or the CrossFit realm, or just kind of with the younger population. So the kind of fundamental movements that, if you load them or if you do it with weight, are really good for the body. So a squat, a deadlift, and farmer carries. So the squat, just basically getting up off of a chair and going down. You can use a chair or not use a chair, but I do home health, so the easiest weight for me to bring is a kettlebell. So it's kind of that iron ball with a handle on top, and so we'll just do a bunch of repetitions. Just for a lot of people, it's just getting up off of a chair and sitting back down slowly. Is really helpful. A deadlift is you're basically lifting something up off the ground. It's very technical. It seems like a simple movement, but you need to really have your form down pat. And I can definitely include some links to some good videos for this. But that's a very powerful movement. It's a total body movement for sure. But I love it because, especially for older adults, they have a fear of getting close to the ground. For many, I've had many patients. I ask them, when was the last time you were on the ground? Some of them will say 10 to 15 years, or they can't remember. Yeah, and if they were on the ground 10 to 15 years ago, it's probably because of a fall and a traumatic incident. So there's a lot of fear associated with the ground, getting close to the ground. And the deadlift, you don't get on the ground per se, but you lower your center of mass, or you lower your body. And that can be difficult for a lot of older adults, but if they can do that without weight, and then you add a little weight to it, it's a great strengthener. And then the last one is farmer carries. So basically carrying a heavy weight at your side. You can carry it on one side or the other, or carry weight on both sides. And really heavy farmer carries are great with all kinds of people, but I definitely use it with a lot of people that don't respond to me giving them cues. So people with Alzheimer's, dementia, you can give them this weight, and instead of having to say, hey, stand up a little bit taller, improve your posture, all those different things, the weight gives them that signal to do it automatically. Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty handy one. So those three are kind of my go-to, and if I make it to 80, 85, 90 years old, those are the three that I hope to be doing myself.
All right. I want to ask you a question. We have a lot of people who, are taking care of older parents, and who might, like you've been mentioning, be in their 90s, or maybe even older. How can they, as an adult child, providing care to an older parent, how can they work in either working with a PT or even doing some of these types of exercises into the care that they provide for their parents?
That's a good question. A lot of times that can be, that can obviously be a struggle, especially the caregivers that I work with. Time is of the essence, and many caregivers, especially if it's family, the family member typically will not want to do exercise with them. That's where, an outside person coming in can be really helpful. But if the parent is wants to exercise and the caregiver is able to do that, that's great. And I like to think of it as just kind of doing movement snacks. So that concept is not, I did not coin that. I don't know who did. I read it somewhere, but not thinking of exercise as this big event that you have to do, at a certain point of the day. But that movement, the exercise, can be sprinkled throughout your day. You don't have to isolate it to one chunk. It can be throughout all the hours of your day. So say anytime, they're helping their parent get out of the bed, that's an opportunity to squat. So, instead of just, getting out of bed, standing up, you could go ahead and throw in 5 to 10 squats there. Anytime, say you're doing stairs, you, instead of going up and down, you could go up, down, and then back up, again, or go, 2 flights instead of just doing one. Breaking up, sitting is huge in terms of just moving your body regularly throughout the day, rather than sitting for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours like a lot of people can tend to do. So that those different movements, I would definitely encourage the caregivers to lower the barriers to do it. So don't make it too big of a deal or take too long, but just kind of sprinkle it throughout your day, and that could be very effective. But then also, you mentioned caregiver. I think those exercises are just as important for caregivers as well. Because it's not easy, especially if you have someone that you're working with that needs, physical assistance to get, out of their bed, out of a chair, to help walk. The caregiver has to be pretty strong and fit to be able to do those things. So, those same exercises that are good for the older adult are also good for the caregiver, in terms of being able to lift heavy weight, to be able to do it safely and effectively to prevent any injury, is really important.
Okay, we're going to switch gears here again, and I know you've got another project that you're working on, the Senior Rehab Project. Why don't you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the Senior Rehab Project is, I guess, it's just me scratching my own itch. So, I mentioned before doing home health. I don't get a lot of interaction with other clinicians. I can always call people, but, when you're in the thick of your workday, that typically doesn't happen. A lot of things take precedence. And so home health, you're kind of isolated. And in most physical therapy settings, you're around other clinicians. And that's a really good thing, because you stay on top of your skills, you're challenged, you can talk about patients, and it's an environment for growth. Home health it's not very suitable to growing as a clinician. Not to say it can't be done, but there's just a lot of innate barriers to the setting. And so also with home health, you're driving a lot. I'm probably in the car at least 2 hours a day. So I end up listening to a lot of podcasts. And I am definitely a fan of utilizing my driving time to learn. And so I would listen to physical therapy podcasts, but most of the podcasts that are out on the market for people like me are geared towards the clinician that works with younger athletes, or just kind of the orthopedic setting. So there are some things that are applicable to the home health clinician, or even the person, the nursing home or the hospital. But by and large, it doesn't really speak to the rehab clinician that's working with older adults. So I took some advice from a friend and said, if you have a need that is not met, you need to make something, to meet that need. Because if you have that problem, there's several other people that have that same problem. So I started to think about, what I could do. And I loved listening to podcasts. I know how impactful they were for me. And so I decided, let's start a podcast. I am, very slow speaker. I've got a little twang to my voice. I definitely was worried about how it would sound behind the mic. But I just kind of started the podcast, the Senior Rehab Podcast, from a standpoint of humility, in the sense of I'm not an expert. I want to talk to the experts. I just want to have conversations to be better. And so I kind of put low standards on myself from the get-go, or low expectations from the listeners, and it's been pretty awesome. So I basically just talk to researchers in our field, experienced clinicians, people in and out of PT, honestly. And we'll just talk about how we can care for older adults. And it's been quite the ride. I've learned a ton, but it's been a lot of fun to do over the past year.
I know it's bound to have been a great experience, because the podcasts that I've done in my career, I've definitely learned a lot as well. That's fantastic. So what is one piece of advice that you would give someone to help them, maybe even encourage them to continue building an amazing life for themselves as they grow older?
The big thing that comes to mind is getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. In so many ways, just what I've seen is, especially in the healthcare environment, but just our environments in general, out in the community, in the home, is that we definitely pursue comfort. And, whether that's a nice comfortable chair or a nice stable sidewalk, or, just not getting too hot, getting too cold, or not, lifting things that are too heavy. Those aren't inherently bad, I would say, but they have an impact on our ability to withhandle stress and our ability to be resilient. So I would just say, pursue the discomfort. Don't, injure yourself or pursue pain, but challenge yourself physically, and your body will thank you and be more resilient because of it.
Excellent advice. All right, so before we get out of here, why don't you tell people how they can get in contact with you?
Awesome. Yeah. So you can, find me at SeniorRehabProject.com, and that's just kind of the home base for the podcast that I mentioned. There's some blog posts on there, and then links to Twitter, Facebook, all that fun stuff. So SeniorRehabProject.com is where I'm at on the interwebs.
All right. Well, that was some great information, Dustin. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today, and thank you to everybody for listening. Again, I'm Mark Hager, and this is Smart Retirement Life. Have a great day.